Alright guys, how's it going? We are in the Trans Am today. And yeah baby. This is going to be the first video since I've put the 390 gears in. And I just kind of wanted to do a comparison to the stock gears. This car's a 01 Trans Am. It came with 342 gears from the factory. Now it has Motive 390 gears in it. And I would say around town the difference is quite large. Maybe not in terms of performance, but just I have to shift a lot more often. I would say that it does make 6th gear a lot more usable. I find myself using 6th much more often. Acceleration, it's kind of hard to tell. I think it's kind of just a perception thing, because the car feels like it has a little more power, but you're also going slower when you feel it. So in terms of like quarter-mile testing or something, I wish I could have got a good quarter-mile run with the stock gears, and then a good quarter-mile run with these gears to see if that would make any difference. I honestly don't think it would. But it would have been interesting to see. In terms of noise, the gears do whine a little bit, just a smidge. I have heard factory 10 bolts whine about this much, so I'm not too turned off by it. It's not bad, and the noise is really only between like 45 and 60. And it is a pretty faint whine. You guys probably can't even hear it on the video, but it's definitely there. But on the highway, 70 miles an hour, it does like, I don't know, 1850, maybe 1900. So it's really not bad. Right now I'm doing about, I don't know, 46, 47, and I'm in 6th gear, and it has plenty of torque right now. With the stock 342s, if you went into 6th gear at anything less than like 50 miles an hour, the car would feel like kind of a dead dog, you know. This wouldn't really pull very good. So now 6th gear is significantly more usable, and honestly, at 1850 RPM or whatever it runs at 70, that's really not bad. I don't find it to be unbearable. Since I added the spiral mufflers to the Speed Engineering dual exhaust, it doesn't really drone at all. So it's not like it's uncomfortable or anything, or any more uncomfortable than it was. But I'm trying to data log right now and see if I can overlay the telemetry on this video, so you guys can kind of see what's going on. I don't know how well that's going to work, but we're going to try it out. But yeah, I mean, the gears aren't bad. I'm 469.6 miles into my 500-mile break-in. So basically, after this drive, I'll change the fluid, and then I'll be able to go wide open with it. I haven't really gone wide open with it yet at all. I personally don't think that the gear break-in is quite as important as they make it out to be, but it was rather expensive, so I don't want to do it again. So I made sure to follow it, which isn't bad, you know. I basically just drove the car to work for a few days and almost at the break-in, so. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it really makes the car that much different, to be honest. You know, you basically, you just notice that the gears, you have to shift quicker. You know, you used to be able to hold on to 3rd for a long time. Now you have to go to 4th much sooner. But it's not really that big of a deal. I think on a 4L60 car, it would be much more noticeable, because your gears are much further apart than on a 6-speed car. And on the 6-speed car, you have the ridiculous double overdrive, so you can run a pretty aggressive rear gear and not really feel it that much on the highway. which is cool. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like the quality of the motive gears, I think they're fine. I mean, they don't really make much noise. I did have them professionally installed, so I'm sure they're quieter than they would have been if I put them in myself. But I had the gears put in because I wasn't sure if the stock 342s were damaged or not from when I had my massive catastrophic bearing failure. So I had these gears in my basement already, so I figured, all right, we'll just throw these in there. But upon further inspection of the original 342 gears, they looked like they were fine, and I think you could totally reuse those. So maybe I'll have to use them in a future car or whatever, so I'll keep them around. But yeah, the 390s, it's not like an earth-shattering difference, but you know, you definitely feel that, you know, first gear it has a lot more urgency to get up and moving. And I'd say second gear, you kind of notice it too, because second gear with the stock gears would go to what, like 70, maybe almost 80 miles an hour. So you felt like second gear just went on forever. Now second gear ends a lot sooner. But like I said, I haven't really been super hard on them yet. But yeah, I mean, if you're on the fence, I would say that unless your rear end has a specific problem like mine did, I don't really think it's worth paying the money to get gears installed. If you're gonna do it yourself and it only costs you a couple $100, you know, in parts, because that's all the parts cost. Is parts were pretty cheap. So if you're gonna do it yourself, I mean, yeah, knock yourself out. But if you're like me and you were gonna pay somebody to put them in for you, I certainly wouldn't pay the money unless your rear end is having work done anyway. Because the whole ordeal cost me, I think, everything with the rear end, all the bearings replaced, all the axle seals and pinion seals and all that replaced, and the gears installed, and the speedometer recalibrated, and all of that, labor included, was about $1,000 for the parts, all the bearings, all the seals, the labor, everything included was about $1,000. So not cheap by any means. I think they did a nice job with it. I think the shop that I work with is pretty cool. But yeah, it was not cheap. So I think if you're just trying to get, you know, a performance modification, I think $1,000 can be spent much better. In my case, it was more of a repair than an actual performance modification. But yeah, if you're really chasing, you know, 0 to 60 times or quarter mile times or whatever, I don't think this is a cost-effective way to do it, unless you do it yourself. If you do it yourself, then I think you can do it for $300 or $400. That's not too bad, but yeah, I mean, the performance increase from 342 to 390 really isn't that ginormous. It just changes it really just changes the way the car behaves. I don't think it really makes it that much faster. I think it gives people the illusion that it's faster, but that's just because it runs out of the gears shorter than it would have previously. But I mean, every setup is different. People that do a lot of drag racing, sometimes they're really chasing a specific launch, or, you know, whatever. Then yeah, sure, you know, maybe gears would be money well spent. But for somebody in my position, I don't think it really makes that much of a difference. But all right, we are pulling into Walmart here, so I'm gonna cut the video. So I gotta go get some carpet shampoo. So let's go get started on that. Alright, now we're moving. But so as you guys know, I've done a lot of stuff to the car, a lot of suspension stuff, a lot of accessory drive work, the clutch, the gears, the exhaust, the tune. So I've been a pretty busy little man with this car. But for the future, there is quite a few things I'd like to do. The windshield, certainly has to be replaced. It's been like that for too long. There's always been something more important to fix on the car, but now I think we're to the point where, you know, I think that's kind of one of the bigger problems it has. A more recent development is I think the transmission mount is getting a little weak. Starting to feel the transmission move around a little more than usual. So I think that will have to be addressed. What else? I think I have some more speakers to replace. I only replaced the sail panel ones. I think I'll have to replace the rest of them maybe next year. They're not terrible, but I'm kind of picky when it comes to stereos. I've always wanted a ram air hood on this car, but the aftermarket ones seem like they're kind of hit or miss with quality, so I don't know if that'll ever happen or not. But I've always wanted a camshaft in the car, but I kind of like the windshield. There's always been something more important to do. The engine's always ran pretty good, so you know, putting a camshaft in an engine that has nothing wrong with it seems kind of foolish to me at this moment. But you know, I wouldn't mind getting a different set of wheels that would allow me to run CTSV brakes, so that'll probably be in the future. I'm not loving these tires. The wheels that I have on this car right now, the OE wheels, I'm fine with them. I think they look great, and the price was fantastic. But they won't work with the brakes that I want. So either I have to run spacers, which I'm not a huge fan of, or I have to get different wheels, which, you know, wheels are expensive. But yeah, the tires that are on this car right now, I'm really not a huge fan of. They ride pretty rough. They're a little thin. I went with the 275 35s, so my speedometer would stay accurate, but I think next time I would go with the 40 series sidewall, because I mean, one, they look too thin, especially in the back, and they just ride really, really rough. The 275 40 17s I have on my V6 car ride way better, and they just feel better too. So I think these Kumho PS31s are just not they're not as performance oriented of a tire as I was looking for. But you know, they're relatively new. They only have like, I don't know, 7,000 miles on them or something, so I'll keep them around a little while longer at least, just to get my money's worth out of them. But yeah, so I mean, I don't want to say we're nearing the end of the Trans Am build, because I'm always going to find something stupid to mess with, but it seems like a lot of the big stuff is kind of taken care of, I hope. But you know, once I graduate, hopefully have a little more funds at my disposal, I'd like to do some more stuff: camshaft, hood, different wheels, CTSV brakes, sway bars. Sway bars are kind of a big thing. I put them on my V6 car. I went with the UMI 3522 setup, and that was honestly a very good upgrade. They weren't super cheap. They were like, I think they were over $400, but they did make the car handle significantly flatter, and honestly the ride quality didn't get any worse. So I think I'd like to add that same setup to this car, because how I do things is I usually modify the V6 car first to make sure I like it, and then if I like it, I'll add it to the V8 car as well. Kind of did that with the racing seat as well. I wouldn't mind putting different seats in this car. Maybe I put the Corbeau fixed back seats in my V6 Firebird, and I really like that. I didn't think I was going to like it. I only got those as kind of a necessity so I could fit with my helmet. But I actually find that I'm more comfortable in those seats than these stock ones. So I was very surprised by that, especially because I'm a heavier guy. I thought since I'm bigger, I wasn't going to fit in the racing seat very well, but I actually find it to be more comfortable. When I took this car down to Kentucky for LS Fest, I was in the car for about 9 or 10 hours down there, and maybe 8 or 9 hours back, and I was feeling it pretty bad. These stock seats are just I think the foam just gets worn out or something, so they just end up getting pretty uncomfortable for longer trips. So yeah, certainly seats are not out of the question for this car, and I think racing seats just look cool. But yeah, so I mean, still plenty of stuff to do, still plenty of stuff I'd like to do. Whether or not I will do it, we'll see. But the car's running pretty well. I think the tune is pretty nice. Clutch seems to be working well. The Tickmaster cylinder seems to be working well. The MGW shifter seems to be working well. The new gears seem like they're doing fine. I still have to change the fluid, but you know, I still got some miles left on the break-in. But yeah, I mean, the car has come a long way in the 5 years I've had it. So yeah, I mean, you see with them 390 gears, you really gotta shift like more often than you're used to with the stock gears. But it does make it so the taller gears do have a little more torque, which is nice. You know, 5th gear pulls pretty good from like 30, 35 now, which it never used to do before. 6th gear pulls fine from 40 and up. Because right where I'm at about 45 right now, and if I would have gone into 6th gear with the stock gears, it really wouldn't have been very fun. But yeah, so I mean, I don't regret the 390 gears. I do kind of regret lowering this car at times. The ride quality is not very good. I think the tires play a lot into that though. The 275/35 tires, they're real thin.